Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short with another analysis video where we take the cultural news and we look at it everything from a biblical perspective. And today we're going to be looking at a recent Grammy performance. We're not going to actually be looking at it. We're going to be talking about it. But we're going to be talking about this abomination of a devil horn Sam Smith, Kim Petras, who is a man actually, who has so-called transitioned into a woman as a transgender woman, satanic performance at the Grammys. Now, this is standard fare for these Hollywood and celebrity events. We see this happening all the time. We see this happening, for example, I don't know what's going to be planned for the upcoming Super Bowl halftime celebration, but I can guarantee you it will probably be something disgusting and degrading and immoral and carnal and worldly. That's just the way things are in our world today. The pagans have risen up in ascendancy, and our culture, that once was at least broadly Christian in consensus, has now basically turned into a pagan culture where, you'll find pockets of Christianity, but in the mainstream culture, the pop culture, and especially the elite leaders, they are pagan through and through. But we're going to talk about how, as Christians, we are to respond to this. Now, some people might ask, why do we as Christians even care about this stuff? Why do we even react to things like a satanic ritual being done at the Grammy Awards, Grammy Music Awards? Why do we even care if there is a so-called transgender person who is trying to look, for all intents and purposes, like a woman and trying to convince people that you can become a woman even if you are born a man or born a biologically male? Why do we care if this Sam Smith dresses up like a devil and is part of a satanic ritual? Why should we care? After all, we have Christ, we have the Bible, we have the church, we live our Christian lives. Why should we be reacting to all of this paganism that we see in our culture? Well, the reason is because we're supposed to be in the world, but not of it. And so we are in the world. We have to live in the world. We have to go to work in the world. We have to shop in the world. We live next to people in the world. So we are interacting with our world. Now, we'll either interact with our world in a godly, Christian, consistent way, or we will interact with our world in an ungodly, inconsistent, non-Christian way. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the Christian church and a lot of Christians today are interacting with the pagan culture in ungodly, unchristian, inconsistent, biblically inconsistent ways. And so we have to, as Christians, know how to respond. We have to know how to react. We have to know what to do about the degrading of our culture, how we can help be salt and light in the world rather than just sit on the sidelines and watch it go down the drain in our lifetime, which we are actually seeing taking place. But we don't have to sit on the sidelines. Excuse me. So we have to learn how to consistently apply biblical principles to our lives living in a carnal, ungodly world. And this is something that, unfortunately, the Christian church in our modern times is not very good at doing. We're very good at gathering a lot of people all at once on Sunday morning. And you can see all of these mega churches. You can see all of these Christian institutions and Christian gatherings. We have Christian music concerts and artists performing in front of thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of people all at once. And so you would think, look at all these people. gathered together, 10,000 people on a Sunday morning. All of these mega churches with thousands of people streaming in, the parking lot full of cars, and just churches bringing in millions of dollars every year in huge church gathering buildings, huge church campus. Christianity must be thriving, and the values of Christ and the Bible must be permeating into all of society. And you would just think from the size of church gatherings in these mega churches that their region would just be a holy and sanctified area of our land. But unfortunately, that is totally opposite of the case, because you'll have these big mega churches in these big metropolitan cities, and there is virtually no measurable fruit in the culture of these big mega churches. Now, what is taking place? What is the problem? You have this massive contemporary Christian artist industry, CCM, contemporary Christian music. You have huge artists that are known all over the world. Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, all this. They even have their own award ceremony, the Dove Awards, every year. And these people are selling millions of copies of their music. And you would think that all of that influence, and the Christian book publishing industry, you would think that all the millions of books that are being sold and all the millions of books that are in homes all across the country and all over the world, you would think, wow, this is really making a huge impact on, let's just say, the United States. But unfortunately, when you look around and you see all of that supposed Christian influence in culture, and then you look at culture, it doesn't seem to jive. It doesn't seem to add up. What is wrong? Well, what's happening is we're not applying the Bible consistently to our Christian living. We're not applying the Bible to our Christian families, to our Christian marriages, to our Christian values and morality. We're not applying our Christian biblical values to our politics and to our educational systems and to every aspect of life. We are inconsistent. That's the problem in the Christian world today. Inconsistencies, especially in the evangelical world in the United States. And so that's why we need to know how to think about things like this satanic ritual that was basically broadcast to millions of people in the United States with the Grammy Awards. And so we have to know how to think about this, and we have to know what to do about it. We are not helpless. We're not simply people who are blown about by every wind of doctrine, or we're just not powerless. We have the power of Christ. And so we have to talk about these things and learn how to react to them so that when it's our time to step up, say, for example, at the voting booth, that we know how to vote. And we're not shooting ourselves in the foot because we're voting for the wrong politician who promotes these devil values. I'll give an example. Wheaton College, my old alma mater, that back in the day I attended and graduated from Wheaton College. And the big emphasis at Wheaton College back then was the integration of faith and learning. So you have your faith and you have an education, and those should fit together consistently. So you take your Bible values that are taught in both the Old and New Testament, and you formulate a Christian worldview. And this was really big at the time, especially of a Christian philosopher named Arthur Holmes. His big emphasis that permeated the whole campus at Wheaton College was the integration of faith and learning. He even wrote a book called something like The Ideal of a Christian College, or The Idea of a Christian College, or A Vision for a Christian College, with the Christian worldview permeating every aspect of life and learning. And so I learned how to integrate my faith back in the day at Wheaton College. Well, today, Wheaton College has drifted so far, so bad, from its core convictions, even though they're symbolically saying, oh yeah, we integrate Christian faith and Christian learning. We promote Christian worldview, the development of thinking consistently biblical. We all do that. In fact, they just came up recently within the last 4 or 5 years of the so-called curriculum core called Christ at the Center, which is supposed to have everything from a Christian perspective, Christian worldview, and so forth. Yet, if you actually look at what is taking place at Wheaton College, you will be disturbed. You will be upset. Why? For example, 2020 election, the election between the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, and the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden. So you would think that a Christian institution, a Christian higher education institution like Wheaton College, supposedly one of the best, if not the best Christian college in the country. It's supposed to be the Harvard of evangelical Christianity as far as education goes. High standards, excellence in education. Students graduate, go on to higher education or teach or go into the fields of ministry, seminary, like I did, and different other things. The students are supposed to be carrying a Christian worldview. They're supposed to go out as salt and light into the world of darkness and really make a difference. The motto is for Christ and his kingdom. And so the students and the faculty and the administration, the goal is to make a difference in the world for Jesus Christ and his kingdom. Okay? Great. That's the ideal. You know what happened in 2020 election? The news headline coming from Wheaton was that a majority of students actually, and students, faculty, and administration actually voted for the Democrat Joe Biden over the Republican Donald Trump. So here you would think that if you were going to integrate your Christian faith and your learning and Christian worldview would control your voting, your behavior, your morality, you would think that no one in their right mind connected with Wheaton College would ever vote for pro-abortion, pro-homosexual, pro-transgender, pro-LGBTQ, everything. Every moral perversion, every deviant, immoral, anti-Christian behavior, the Democrats and Joe Biden are all in for. They say it directly to the people. They promote this constantly. They're pushing the younger school children to transition, so-called, from maybe a little boy wants to be a girl. So they're all in for that. They're promoting that. They'll actually help and facilitate the surgery of that little boy or the chemical puberty blockers for that little boy to transition at a young age. It is just evil what the Democratic Party is now pushing and promoting. And so you would think, if you had any kind of sense, you would say, well, maybe at the most 1 or 2% of the Wheaton College community, when you consider all the students, faculty, administration, you would think maybe 1% or 2% of the Wheaton College community would have voted for this evil agenda of the Biden administration, Democratic Party. You would think that maybe they wouldn't vote for Donald Trump because of some of his own personal problems, like his past immorality and his past behavior, or maybe just his demeanor today, his personality, his pride, his pettiness. You would think that that might take away from a number of biblical Christians voting for Donald Trump. I actually know some Christians who are consistently biblical. They have a Christian worldview. They try to live 100% for Christ in what they say and do and think and feel. So they're actually trying 100% to follow Christ, and they just don't like Donald Trump. They don't like the way he talks. They don't like the way his attitude is. And sure, there are things with Donald Trump that are off-putting, and he is proud. He's petty. He takes everything personally, ego-centered. You can go on and on. And I could understand why a Christian, biblical Christian, would not want to vote for him. And I know some that haven't. But the vast majority of evangelical Christians did vote for him despite himself, because they liked that he was pro-life, because that's a Christian value to be pro-life, to fight against the killing of babies in the womb with abortion. And so Christians, we're all in for anti-abortion. We don't want babies slaughtered in the womb. This is Moloch worship. If you look in the Old Testament, that's what the pagans did. They sacrificed their babies on the altar of the pagan god Moloch to get better rain, crops, success, whatever. And people today do the same thing, only it's not called Moloch. It's called freedom of choice. It's called career advancement, do what I want to do, live my own life, whatever the excuse is given. It's a very similar parallel to Moloch worship. Well, that's evil. That's satanic. So why would a Christian ever vote to empower leaders at the top of our government to implement these evil, satanic policies? Why would any Christian vote for Joe Biden? Well, they have no business voting for Joe Biden. And yet over 50%, I think it was like 60% of the entire community, administration, faculty, and students voted for Joe Biden, the anti-Christian president, whose policies are diametrically opposed to everything the Bible stands for. And if they do get something right, it's almost accidental. It's almost incidental. But they did. And so you have this gross inconsistency between what Wheaton College idealistically professes and then their actual behavior. Because voting for the party of death, the Democratic Joe Biden candidate in 2020, is a gross inconsistency. It is not a biblical behavior. It is not a reflection of Christ at the core, which is Wheaton's new curriculum. It is not reflective of an honest evaluation of Christian values applied to politics in the world of culture. It is not a consistently Christian stand, and yet they did that. So whatever's taking place at Wheaton College, despite all the idealistic slogans and platitudes, what they're doing is doing the very opposite when it push comes to shove and they go out into the culture, supposed to be salt and light. They're doing everything but that in this area of politics. And so that is a representation of evangelicalism in general, where you have, for example, up in Minnesota, an otherwise really nice and great teaching pastor, John Piper. His church, Bethlehem Baptist in Minneapolis, Minnesota, he takes this position that, for example, in an interview, someone asked him, well, do you think that someone on your staff, a pastor, a teacher, an influencer in this church, will vote for a Democrat like Obama, or vote or candidate for Obama, who you know is pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, profaning a marriage? Could someone on your staff be a Democrat, promote the Democratic platform, and vote for someone like Obama? And he said, well, yeah, sure. I don't see why not. And when I saw that interview, I thought, wait, here is a generally knowledgeable person, generally mature Christian from his writings and his speaking, and yet he has this flippant, casual attitude about applying biblical truth to culture. And what it comes down to is this overly pietistic, which what that means is Jesus and me, I got my Bible, I got my prayer time, I go to church, we're good. Everything's fine. Whatever's going on out there, let it go on out there. I have no control over that. And so I'm just going to go to church on Sunday. I'm going to try to do my best I can to live for Jesus in my home and family and marriage. And there's nothing else I can do. And really, what's going on in Washington, what's going on in politics, what's going on in culture and mass media, I really don't have any connection or interest in involving myself in any of that because, after all, it's just about Jesus and me. That's pietism sort of overly simplified. And John Piper and a lot of these megachurches and a lot of the megachurch pastors have this attitude that we don't get involved in any of these cultural war issues. There are babies being slaughtered every day in every state, but really, that's politics. We want to focus on Jesus, or we don't know what's going on in the public schools, and they may be grooming kids for transgenderism and for all of these radical leftist democratic causes, but that's public school system. We don't have any control over that. I'm not going to worry about that. That's not my concern. It's just about me and Jesus and my family maybe and my church. And that is a narrow-minded, false view of the Christian life. We are to live for Jesus. We are to think consistently biblical. We are to be salt and light in the world. And the way you do that is you are an influencer. When you talk to people, you know what's going on in your culture, and you have a biblically informed worldview whereby you can talk to people at work, in the neighborhood, in your family, at family gatherings, at holidays. You can talk sense to people because you have the Bible in one hand and you can apply the Christian teachings to the culture. So when we look at these things happening like this devil worship that took place at the Grammys, we have an opinion about that. And we can say, without apology, this is evil. This is satanic. This is decadence. This is a sign of a culture declining, and judgment is coming. And we will do everything we can to oppose this evil. When we go to the ballot box, we will oppose the evil, satanic, Democratic Party platform. We will oppose evil, satanic, abortion, transgender promoting Democratic candidates. We will never vote for a Democrat because a Democrat is pushing satanic, evil, immoral things. And if you think I'm wrong, you just look at their platform. Every 4 years when the presidential elections, or even the local candidates, they're all in on the transgenderism. They're all in on the LGBTQ normalizing of abominable, disgusting things that are forbidden in the Old and New Testament. So it's not just an Old Testament thing. They're overly harsh. No, it's a New Testament thing. God says no to sexual perversions of all kinds. Democrats say yes. So you never, ever, ever vote for a Democrat. Now, Republicans, you can look at the Republican and say, is this person honest? Is this person telling the truth? Is this person going to stand for the unborn and oppose abortion? Is this person going to stand for the sanctity of marriage, or are they going to promote the so-called gay marriage? Are they going to oppose sexual immorality in the LGBTQ movement? Are they going to support biblical values? If so, we vote for them. If not, we don't. And there are some Republicans that I would never vote for because they're weak on all of the important biblical Christian values. So they're not going to get my vote, and they shouldn't get your vote. But we have to make a difference in the culture, and we have to be advocates for God's truth. Why did God reveal his Bible to us and all the teachings and values in it if we're going to keep silent and stay pietistic and, well, I'm just going to church, I'm going to talk about Jesus and think about Jesus in my church and in my home and in my own private time of prayer, but then when I go out, well, I really don't have anything to say to people. Yes, you do have a lot to say to people. Go out into the world and make disciples. That's the Great Commission, Matthew 28. Make disciples of all the nations. How do you make disciples? You teach them the truth that God has revealed. You show them how to be forgiven of their sins. Yes, you must speak of sin. When we look at the Grammy Awards, this is sinful. This is evil. Satanic rituals on national television is evil because Satan represents symbolically, I don't know if probably none of these people actually believe in the spiritual Satan, but that doesn't matter. He is a symbol of rebellion against God. And so we know as Christians that there really is a Satan. We know that he rebelled against God back, eons ago. We know that he is now continuing to rebel against God. He wants people to sin and be immoral and do everything that defies God. We know that. Okay, so we can say without any hesitation, this is satanic evil. We are against this. We are for Jesus. We are for holiness. We are for purity. And so we do everything we can to influence everyone we know, family, friends, coworkers, culture at large, local people, national people, international, worldwide. We do everything we can to be salt and light in this world. And that means being consistently biblical. Now, what happens is if you're consistently biblical, you will get opposition. You will be opposed by people who are sympathetic, or as the new term is, allies of this sin. So there are abortion allies, there are gay LGBTQ allies. This is all sinful, and any Christian involved in that should be rebuked. It's just nonsense that something like a Wheaton College would even have an issue, would even have a problem being consistent in such a basic way. Yeah, Wheaton College is an example, but there are mega churches all over the world. There are small churches, medium-sized churches, and they just are this pietistic, Jesus and me, I got my Bible, I got my prayer time, I'm not going to involve myself in these other things. That is disobedient to Christ. That is disobedience to Christ. Christ says, go into the world of sinners and make disciples. How do you make disciples? Teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you. Teaching the Bible, teaching people to live it, to believe it, to do what it says. And when they do that, then we're fulfilling the Great Commission. So this is why we need to be aware of what's going on in our society. We need to know how to think about it, and we need to know how to communicate it. So when people ask us, hey, what do you think about this? We can tell them in a coherent, rational way, and that will be fulfilling the Great Commission. Hope this has been helpful. We'll see you back next week. God bless.